All right. So welcome everybody to today's training. And this training is going to be about secrets to building active and engaged members, both virtually and in person. Now, the reason why this training is so important is because you're going to learn a lot of tips and suggestions about persuasion and influence. But as some of you are graduating this year, you may say, well, my days of engagement and student activities and leadership clubs is ending soon. So how is this relevant to me? Well, if you can learn the principles of building active and engaged members, well, these are the same secrets to building active and engaged employees. So I'm going to be covering a lot of topics related to management and how to keep people motivated, how to hold them accountable. We're going to be talking about delegation. So there's going to be a lot of different things in today's training that I think is going to both really help you personally and professionally. So let me share with you some of the rules for training. And again, I didn't really cover these on the last trainings, but I think it's important to remember after every significant training, we'll have a post assessment. So I'll ask some questions. Again, you need to do that post assessment in order to get credit for all these trainings so that you can get your certificate. I know some of you may be driving, some of you may be doing other stuff. You can't, I'm not requiring you to keep your camera on, but if you can, please keep it on. I love to, who cares if there's things in the background, messed up hair, pajamas, that doesn't matter to me. As long as you're engaged, that's all that matters, again, participation is very important in these trainings. So for example, if you're not able to participate or something's wrong with your speaker, you can totally chime in terms of the chat. I will be checking it occasionally throughout the training just so that I could stay focused. But I just may call on you if no one else volunteers just to hear your thoughts and suggestions. And then please, I'm terrible with names, so always correct me if I mispronounce your name because I do want to get it right. Well, there's no real 5-minute break. I had to end that just because there's so much content that I want to cover. So I'll fix that in the next edit of this presentation. Just raise your hand and yes, the training will be recorded. So let's jump right in. So we're going to be talking about members of your organization. So there are different stages of becoming a member, from the time that you're recruiting them to the time they're members and to keep them active and engaged to the time of maybe you actually need to get rid of them. Yes, I said it. There may be people in your organization that you can't stand. And so I want to actually share with you what is the most effective way to actually get rid of them or fire them. Again, that's not something that's really talked a lot about in different leadership development trainings, but I want to teach it to you. And if you and the same principles that I'm going to train you right here are the same things that can be applied in the workforce. So we're going to talk about discussion, why people join organizations, how to pitch and recruit people, how to keep them active, how to keep them engaged, what to do about events, what to do about meetings, how to delegate, how to transition and fire them. And then we'll have a post assessment. And then you can ask me again any questions at the end of the training or throughout the training. So let's first have a little quick discussion, and then I'll share with you my answers. Why do you think people join clubs or organizations? All right. So either put it in the chat or tell me what you think, or raise your digital hand on why you think people join an organization. Okay, Shania, I got it. Looks good on a resume. Of course, if we're not having different extracurricular activities, we go to college to get a job. So anything that we can add to that that's going to make us stand out, totally 100%, you're on the ball. Interaction with college, Susan, thanks so much. So yes, absolutely, we want to interact, we want to meet people. Some people may be looking for a partner, someone to date. I don't know, there could be a whole host of reasons why people get involved. But thank you all for sharing. So I'm actually going to share with you what I think are the most common reasons. Yes, absolutely. Networking, other students. Here are a list of my own that I've created. People are looking for fun. If your organization is boring and not interesting, then why the heck should they use their spare time to actually get involved? Yes, people are looking for love, and it doesn't necessarily just mean for a partner. It could just be love of like a family, like of a connection. They're looking for relationships. People want a sense of community. And remember, anything that I highlight in red is something very important for you to remember, because it may also be included in the post assessment. So yes, people want a sense of belonging. They want a community that they can identify and say, this is my community. And then the other thing is the sense of belonging is where they feel like it's their home. They want to feel special. They want to learn and grow. And like Shania said, enhance their resume and get a job. This by far is one of the biggest benefits for being involved in a club or organization, and it should be always used as a recruiting tool, which I'm going to talk about. And then just professional experience. In clubs and organizations, you are going to learn certain skills, working as a team, planning events, doing anything like that. I can't tell you how much volunteering for different organizations, even outside of college, you don't know how that will impact in terms of you networking with other people, that you have new experiences. Maybe those people could actually help you get a job. I definitely am a big believer in that. So let's keep going. Now, one of the things that when you study leadership, you're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I thought that this was very interesting. For some of you, this may be a refresher. For some of you, this may be the first time, is that humans have certain needs, and it explains why we behave the way we do and why do we do the things that we do. So the first one is that you have to understand we all have physiological needs. We need air, water, food, shelter, and stuff like that. If we don't have those needs, then we can't think about and bother with anything else. Then comes safety, personal security, etc. But see the last top three? This is where organizations, companies, jobs that you can work for, this is where you can focus and provide those essential needs for your team members, for your members. Love and belonging. They need friendship. They need some intimacy. Now, intimacy is often associated with maybe like a partner, marriage or anything like that, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, but it doesn't always have to be that. Intimacy might just be being vulnerable and sharing with somebody and connecting with them, and having that safe space. So that's very important. The next thing is esteem. So you want to actually be part of an organization where you feel like you can gain some respect, you can have actually develop some status or recognition. Why is it that so many organizations have award ceremony at the end of the year, whether it's your college or things like that? Because people want to work and want that recognition. It helps them distinguish themselves from other people. Now, this is the same reason why people can be very competitive in a race. Hey, what would happen if a race had no winners? And it's like, okay, we're all going to do this race and everybody's a winner. It might not be as fun. Some people are maybe not as competitive as others, but people want to actually distinguish themselves and they want to excel. And so doing that work and recognizing them, thanking people, is part of understanding psychological human behavior to help keep them engaged and motivated, provide them that psychological need. Now, that doesn't mean give it everybody and say, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing. If everyone's amazing, then no one's amazing. So, you can actually be very careful with your praise and choose very wisely. And then the last one is self-actualization, desire to become the most that one can be. Yeah, people want to constantly improve and grow. And so if you're not giving people and members the opportunity to challenge themselves and grow, they're not going to be happy. So for example, let's talk about a club or organization. What is the most fundamental thing that you may need to do for a club or organization? You may need to promote the events. So one thing I know now, everyone is doing flyers and, everyone's using social media, putting things up there on Facebook, Instagram. I got that. But if you're actually in college, I don't even know. I've been out of the college game for some time, but even if you can use all those methods, doing stuff in person, handing out flyers. This stuff is basic and fundamental and still really works. I know that there may be concerns about the environment and printing and things like that. You can use recyclable paper, but if you're really trying to get individuals to do something, then paper, having something tangibly in the hands can actually make a significant difference. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when I was in clubs and organizations, we would say, hey, everybody, we need to go flyer. We need to go to promote. And if that's all you're doing, how are you being stimulated? How are you growing? How are you doing anything? Well, what I would do with my team, I would say, yes, we're going to have to flyer. It's the boring part of what we have to do, but why don't you go with a partner so that you can actually connect, network, talk with them? If you're posting up flyers and doing all these things, you're talking with somebody. So guess what? It's an experience. You get to feel part of something. So all these top three, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is going to be interwoven throughout this whole presentation. So I'm just helping you understand how to motivate people, how to engage people, because all these themes are going to come up again and again. So let's keep going. Now, one of the most popular events that schools will often do is a club day event or a welcome event. Now, I have done these. I've been part of them. And let me actually share with you my experience. And I want you to tell me whether this resonates with you as part of your experience. So there's this big event. You maybe have 50 or 100 clubs. Some of you may do it virtually ever since COVID. Some of you may have starting to do it in person. Regardless, when it was in person predominantly, this is how it would work. You'd have all the different tables of all the clubs and organizations. Some tables would bring like candy or food, something to kind of draw people. And you'd be sitting in the chairs, sitting behind the table. And guess what? People would come by, you'd tell them about the organization. And what it was kind of like is, how many names could I get, right? Why don't you write your name down here? Here's your name, your email, your phone. And the goal would be, how many people could you want to actually get and gather and be part of that organization? So for me, this is what I did when I was early and an active student leader. So it would be a fun thing to talk to people, get them to sign up. And I was very successful. I was like, oh man, I got like 100 names. I got 30 names, whatever it would be. Guess how many of those people actually showed up and came to those events? I would say maybe one, maybe two. Yes, Susan, 1%. Absolutely. Why? Why do we do this whole big thing of Club Day if it's so ineffective? And that's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it ineffective. And the reason why is because you're not actually tapping in to what it really takes to actually effectively recruit people and have them part of your organization. So yeah, you can have people walking away with candy and stuff like that, but they never show up. You never see them again. You barely recognize them. So what I started to do was something different. And I'm going to start to ask you if you pick up on what I'm talking about. So when I would have welcome open houses, things like that, whether this was student government, I would have somebody come in and I would be very friendly. I would connect with them. I would ask them questions, get to know them. And then I would say, hey, why don't I introduce you to some of the other members of my student government or whatever it was? And I'm like, come follow me. And then they would introduce this person. I'm like, hey, this is Johnny. All right, let me tell you all about Johnny. He's a super hardcore vegan. He loves all animal rights. He's very funny, and et cetera, et cetera. Hi, John. Hi, John. Nice to meet you. All right, now let me introduce you to this person. This is Alexis. Oh my goodness, Alexis, she's studying biochemistry. She has tattoos all over her body. She loves tattoos and very artistic. You could talk to her about anything with that. Introduce yourself. So I would walk and introduce them around all these different people. And what I'm doing is I'm making them feel like it's a family. I'm sharing information about them. I'm saying you're more than welcome to come here and talk to them, develop a relationship. It's not a transactional thing. It's an interpersonal relationship thing, because this is the real secret to actually getting members. It's actually developing best friends. developing friendships with people. So if you want to really recruit, gain members and stuff like that, you're going to want to do, what can I do to become best friends or connect with these members or attendees? How can I develop a relationship with them? And if it's virtual, how can I develop a relationship? Well, I need to have a conversation with them. I have to have a phone meeting. I have to have a Zoom meeting. And so this is a image or meme of an older movie called Step Brothers. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's with John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell. It's very, very funny. They start off the movie as enemies. Yes, should I think so? I know it's a great movie, and they hate each other, right? And guess what happens? They start hanging out, and then there's a moment in the movie where they start seeing, hey, I have this interest. I have that interest too. And so they start having all the same similarities. And then they ask the question is, did we just become best friends? And he's like, yep. And because that's actually how we develop friendships, is we get to know people and we say, hey, I like these things. So the more questions that you can ask each other and develop similarities or connections, the more friendships you're going to make. Now, I'm going to give you some actual specific examples of how to actually do this, because some people really don't know, like, how do you develop best friends? Like, I only have a close group of best friends. Well, there's something that you can do, and it's very easy. The first thing in becoming a friend with somebody is to be very vulnerable, right? To be able to laugh at yourself. People don't like being vulnerable. Why? Because then there's a fear of judgment, that they can be criticized. Now, what ends up happening is, I had to learn from my whole life experience, is the more vulnerable that you start sharing about yourself, because most people don't want to volunteer and vomit everything about their life, unless you're, a special kind of person, or there's a couple of people like that you may know. But guess what? I started to discover, the more I was willing to share about myself and not take myself so seriously, not get angry, not get upset, what ends up happening? People would then start to open up back to me. Oh my goodness, Tim, I'm so glad that you shared that with me. That actually reminds me of something that happened with me or my sister or my brother. And so in that sharing and having those similarities, we become friends. The next thing is sharing stories. People love stories, and if you don't know, you're like, what stories do I tell? Well, you are alive. You have had a bunch of different experiences in your life. I'm telling you, you have a story, and there's different parts of your life at your story. But here's what you actually haven't done. Most of you, many of you, is that you actually haven't practiced writing and telling that story. When somebody tells you a story, or you just spit it out as you remember it. But to tell a good story, if you ask an author or anybody else, they actually take the time to write it out. What happened in the beginning, or what happened in the end, what was the climax, what was the challenge, and then what was the lesson learned. Now, I've actually had to learn how to tell stories, and there's a lot of good videos online on YouTube that you could say, hey, research how to tell a good story. And I would actually advise each and every one of you, if you're a little bit nervous or uncomfortable, the best thing you could do is tell a good story. And so start looking at your life and all the different events that have happened to you, and start making a collection of all the different stories. The next thing is to be authentic and don't fake it, because people can smell that right away. So what happens if you are talking to a person and they say, oh my goodness, I love tattoos. And you're like, in your head, you're like, ugh, tattoos, disgusting. I can't stand tattoos. I'm using that example because I used to be like that, but not anymore. That's a whole other side story I have to tell you sometime. But what ended up happening is, you don't have to say, oh yeah, tattoos, even though you don't like them. You can still be authentic and still have a connection. It's like, oh, really? You really like tattoos? I actually, get a little uncomfortable with the idea of tattoos. Can you tell me why you love them so much? What is it about them? So instead of me trying to pretend like I like it, you could actually be humble and say, you know what? I have a different perspective, but I'd really like to learn from you about why you love it. And so maybe you might learn something, you might share. That is what develop friendships and connection. And so that's how you can become a friend. And here's another 3 tips on developing friends is asking open-ended questions. Now, I remember when I was in social settings, I would like meet people and say, when I was in college, so what major are you? And they're like, okay, environmental science. Oh, cool. I'm chemistry. And then you're like, what the hell do I talk about next? The reason why that's so uncomfortable is because you're asking closed-ended questions. You're basically asking yes or no questions. So instead of asking, what is your major? Asking open-ended question is, tell me how or why. So you change that to say, hey, yeah, so you're studying environmental science. Why did you choose to do that major? Or tell me a little bit more about that. Why did you want to choose that? Asking those open-ended questions will allow people to share and be more open. And I just recently learned that a great way to not have great questions, or if you suck at asking questions or interviewing people, is just say, tell me more about that. Oh, so tell me more about your friends and family. And just saying, tell me more about one blank subject, what ends up happening is people will most likely elaborate on the thing that interests them about that topic. Sometimes people will say to you, well, what do you want to know about my friends or family? So be prepared that they may ask you that. You're like, well, tell me, what are they like? What do they like to do for hobbies? Share me times that have you traveled together? What was that like? Tell me, why did you travel there? How was that experience? So again, bringing it back to why and how questions, you'll end up having a lot great conversations. The other thing is asking for stories. I have my wife would always make fun of me because I would meet people and I'm like, oh, tell me a good story. Tell me a story about this. Tell me a story about how you guys met. And so some people would say, dang, Tim, that's a very personal question. Well, guess what? I'm this is who I am. I really want to get to know people. If I see that they don't want to talk about it, I'll pull back. But that's the part of actually being curious. And who knows, by them sharing a story, I'm going to say, oh my goodness, I had that same experience that you had. And then let me share you my story. And that's how you develop that connection. And the last thing is care about them. Don't judge them. There's so oftentimes we have these notions of we like what we like, we don't like what we don't like. And so if we could just learn to accept people as they are, being perfectly imperfect, right? All of us, everybody has their own story, everybody has their own situation, perspective. You don't have to agree with someone's perspective, but you don't need to go in there and actually judge them and say, hey, you know what, you're completely wrong, you're mistaken, I don't like you because you believe that certain way. Who knows whether if you were in that same circumstance, whether you would believe the same things. It's only through communication and understanding that we really are able to build friendships and connections with people. Okay, so I know I've shared a lot. Does anybody have any comments or resonate with any of this? Either that this is what they do or have found this really helpful in terms of them for building friendships or connecting with people. Maybe I just might pick on somebody. Hey, Ryan, what I see you. What are you getting from what I'm sharing so far?
Hi, I'm sorry. Yes. So what I'm getting is that I like the part about being vulnerable and being able to laugh at yourself. I totally relate to that
Yeah.
because I know I'm a unique person, and my brother makes these movies making fun of me, and they're very funny, and it's intended to be, humorous, and it works, and I'm able to laugh at myself, and it's really great.
No, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and I'm so glad that you have that attitude, and what that really is, Ryan, it's a superpower because most people can't laugh at themselves. And so I'm going to
Right.
tell you a quick story. So I traveled from state to state, school to school throughout my childhood. And so I was always the new kid in the class. And when I moved here to New York from California, and I was in high school, I started my junior year here, and I didn't know any of the students or the kids, and I was being picked on. I was being bullied. And I remember talking to my grandfather, and I'm like, yeah, the kids are really picking on me and making fun of me at school. And he's like, my grandfather said, and he gave me really wise wisdom. He says, why don't you just laugh with them? Right. And it was something that was so simple. And I'm like, okay, I'll try that out. And I did. And guess what happened? Every time like somebody would tease me, oh my gosh, Tim, I can't believe you asked a question like that. And I'm like, I know, isn't that crazy? I can't believe I asked it myself. I would just laugh at everything. Oh my God, I did this thing that was so stupid. I did this thing that was so silly. And I would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And you know what ended up happening? I'm telling you, God's my witness. I became one of the most popular kids in my school, and I didn't even try. Like it was creepy. I can't explain it. I remember the teacher would make fun of me, and tease me, and I would just start laughing, and then suddenly I became somebody that people wanted to be around and like, and other people were trying to make fun of me or tease me just so that they could be funny too. Like I could see it all around me. So if that is something that you can actually learn, like Ryan is doing and everything like that, especially if you're nervous, if you're not laughing at yourself, it's because you're being afraid of being judged. So throw that out the window. If you trip, oh my goodness, laugh at it. Like, can you believe I just tripped right here? Oh my God, I almost cracked my head open and all your friends are laughing. Don't get angry. Now you're one of the cool. I can't harm you. I can't tease you and make fun of you and get you really riled or upset by those bullies because you're laughing at yourself. So again, great. I thank Ryan for sharing that because it's such an important tip for developing friendships and connecting with people. Let's keep going.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So now let's talk about, you understand why people join organizations, right? Community, they're looking for resume enhancement. Now you're having a welcome a house or whatever, you're inviting people to join. What do you actually say to them to actually join your organization? And it's called a recruitment pitch. Now, most people, you probably ever heard of it, like an elevator pitch. They use that a lot in the business world. I'm assuming that some of you have heard of that or used that in your career. Yep, I see it, Roseanne, that you use it. So one of the things that I was very effective at recruiting people because I knew exactly what I needed to say in order to recruit them. Most people don't know what to say. They do something like this. Hi, my name is Tim. I'm part of the science club. We're recruiting e-board members. Would you like to join? Like, well, what do you do? And then you'd have to explain what they do and things like that. And some people would be interested, some not. You didn't know. Well, I actually want to give all of you a 6-step elevator pitch that to me has always worked. And this could also work via email as well. So here's what those 6 steps are. And again, I'm saying the number 6 because to remind you for the post assessment. The first part, you should explain who you are, right? They need to know, who you are so that they can trust you. What your organization is all about. You can't just say I'm the Environmental Science Club without explaining what the Environmental Science Club does. Then they need a reason on why you're speaking to them. I'm reaching out to you because blank, right? Then that's where most people stop. Then you have to say, here are the benefits if you actually join this organization. You're going to enhance your resume. You're going to do X, Y, and Z. You get an opportunity to make new friends. People need to be bopped over the head with all the benefits on why you want them to join your organization, whatever it may be. You want to know why? Because people are busy. There's so many things that are competing for their attention that you have to hit them over the head, figuratively, on why they should be part of your organization. Now, here is what a lot of people don't do. you have to tell them if they want to be part of this organization, you have to apply to join. There has to be some exclusivity, right? Now, the reason why this is important is because the analogy would be to dating, okay? All of you, I don't know if you have a partner or whatever it may be, but how would it be if let's go, I'm just going to use you, Asia, as an example, all right? So if I say, Asia, hi, nice to meet you. Can you please go out with me? I really want to go out with you. You know, if we could just be together, it would be all the best in the world. I'm coming across desperate, right? You know, that needy, needy, needy. Do you think that that's attractive? You know?
No.
Not at all, right? But guess what? That's what we do with organizations. We really need an executive board member. Well, can you please be a member of our team? Like, if you're so desperate for wanting to meet members, it must be very painful, you know? Like, it sounds like more like work instead of something that I want to be a part of. So I actually think that it's very important when you're actually pitching members to say, listen, we have some positions available on the executive board. However, you have to apply for it. I can't guarantee that you will be on the executive board, but there's a good chance that you might be. So again, I always told my team members and all the people that I've ever mentored about recruiting people, I say, when you're offering a position for an executive board position, I want you to think of is that you have a piece of gold in your hand. You're not just throwing out gold to anywhere, because it really is gold. When you get to add to your resume that you're part of this organization, that is something that they should want. It's not something that you should actually be begging for them. So again, I think that's very important for you to have that value of whatever it is. I mean, let's just take Electus Society as a perfect example, right? You had to apply in order to join the organization. I could just say, here, join this link, watch these videos, but it's that we've created something here. You've had to put at least a little bit of effort. So at that point, you know, if you answer all the questions and meet all that criteria, then guess what? You're in. And so that takes something. You appreciate something. There's also this very concept in business as well. Like, if you don't pay for something, you don't value it as much if it's free. And that's very true. And so, you know, people always find ways to buy the things that they really care about, right? They're willing to pay for a expensive amount of sneakers, right? Because they give it more meaning. It seems more valuable. It has a brand. So again, create that, have them apply to join, and have that exclusivity. And then here's the last step is to ask them if they are interested in learning more. Now, some people say, hey, can you be my executive board member? Would you want to be a secretary? It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. People don't necessarily just say yes to any time they're asked something and make a commitment. If you're asking them, that means, one, you sound desperate. And number two, it's like, wait a minute, you don't just want anybody. You want to be part of something that they have to earn, and you want to be informed. I need to know, what do I have to do? What is the time commitment? All I need to know is, do I have a little bit of interest? Have I piqued you enough? Do you see value in the benefits? If you are, then guess what? Give me your contact information. Now I will reach out to you, and I can actually send you a link to apply, a Google form, or I can send you a reminder email, et cetera, et cetera. What other people do is sometimes they say, okay, here's all the information. Let me know if you're interested. And so then you put it upon that person to get back to you to see whether you want to join that organization or not. Let me ask you, how often do people get back to you? Not very often. Okay. People get busy, get distracted. I'd rather you own the follow-up and get a hold of them and remind people, because, you know, this has to do with a little bit of sales. It's like, whenever you go to a website, what do they want? All they do want is your email. Hey, here's a free something, here's a free report, here's a free giveaway if you just give us your email. Why do they do that? Is because they know that it's so easy to just put an email, that they got your interest. Now guess what, they can control how they follow up with you. So now they'll keep sending you emails, etc. And so maybe after the third, fourth, fifth email, maybe you'll think about them, maybe you'll see them. Oh yeah, now I may want to be interested in their product or service. But they were in control, not waiting for you when you got up to do it to actually reach out to them and do this. So again, these things are, I believe, are not really taught. I wasn't really taught this a lot. I just had to have a lot more experience. So if you can learn these 6 steps of an elevator pitch, you can recruit very effectively. But we're not done yet. There's more I need to teach you. So here's the recruitment example. Hi, my name is Tim Duffy. I'm the president of the Science Club. We put on events to help, educate the campus about sustainability. Why? I'm reaching out to you because I think because you're my science class and I think you would be great to serve on the executive board. Let me tell you about some of the benefits. Resume enhancement. You'll learn skills in management, event planning, teamwork, communication, fill in the blank, right? I can't guarantee that you can get on the executive board. You have to apply for it in order to join. But let me ask you, are you interested in learning more? And I can send you some information. Yes, no? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Here, let me get your phone, let me get your email. I'll send that information over to you and then you can check it out and then you can apply in the link. All right, great. Thanks so much. Boom. That's not hard. Very simple. You can put that as a text message. You can send it as an email. Now, I'm always going to prefer in-person communication. Why? Is because then you can ask questions instantaneously. When you are doing this via text, email, or whatever, someone could say, stop, not interested, no thank you, and you end the conversation there. But if you say, hey, do you have any questions, and maybe they have concerns, oh well, I'm worried about the time commitment. Oh, I'm so glad you asked, and let's talk about the time commitment. So now you're really discovering the reasons why they may not be interested, and maybe you can alleviate their concerns, and then you can get them to join. So that's why I prefer in-person phone communication, so you can actually have an opportunity to persuade and influence them. So now we talked about how to what to say. Now let's talk about the recruitment formula. So I've seen a lot of students get really discouraged when they recruit people. Why? It's because they recruit some person, like, I have the perfect person that I'm thinking of, and I'm going to go talk to them, and they go speak with them, and guess what? They're not interested. Oh, I'm devastated. I don't even want to do this anymore. Why is it so hard? The same thing could be finding an advisor, etc. You have to understand that there is a formula to recruitment. And here's this formula that I created because to me, it increases the likelihood that you'll get your members. So imagine you have to talk to 8 people. Okay. Hey, you're going to do to 8 people in person. You're going to do an elevator pitch. Hey, my name is Tim Duffy, blah, 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 blah. Out of the 8 people, chances are you will get 2 of them to say, yeah, I'm interested. I would like to apply. Now you may say, Tim, I think I'm a little better than getting 2 applications, right? I talk with 8 people. Well, remember what I said. It's talking to 8 people, and maybe you might get 4 people who are interested, and you got 4 contact informations, or maybe 6 contact informations. But guess what? You followed up, you gave them a deadline to join. But how many people actually applied, who actually took the time to actually fill that stuff out? Maybe 2. Now, the better and more persuasive you are, you can get higher statistics than this, or higher numbers. Yes, maybe out of every 8 people, you may get 6 people to apply. Good for you. Great. But at least you have this as a base formula. Now, let's say that I got those 2 applications. Guess what? Don't you want to be part of an organization where you can actually be somewhat selective? What if somebody says that they have no time, and they can only commit to like 1 hour a week? well, there may not be the best person for your e-board. So asking these series of questions, keep it simple. Don't make it very long. Otherwise, no one's going to ever fill it out. And you basically say, you know what, I'm going to choose, chances are half of the people that apply are actually going to make it through. So that means 8 people to apply, you've recruited 1 person. So when it came to student government and my experience in college and different clubs and organizations, it was never really a struggle for me to recruit people. You know why? Because I already knew about the elevator pitch. Then I knew about this recruitment formula. And then all I needed to know is, well, Tim, the more people you talk to, the greater the chances you can actually recruit somebody. So if I need to recruit 4 members, okay, using the recruitment formula, how many people would I need to talk to? So I need at least, if I want 4 members and only half of them are going to make it through, so I need double that. I need 8 people to apply. So whoever is really good at math, you know, go ahead. What's the number?
Was it 32?
Yeah, something like that. Look, you see, I don't even know with math, but you could just see that it's a large number, right? The more people that you speak with, the more people are going to apply, and the greater your skills. So again, I'm terrible at math, but at least I know the fundamentals of the recruitment formula. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? Is this making sense? I hope that you guys are finding this valuable. And I wish that this was taught to me when I was in college, because it would have been very helpful and saved me a lot of pain and discouragement from not finding people, and etc. So you've recruited them. Okay. They've applied, they've accepted. Now, what do you do with them? Okay. Thanks, Susan, for your comment. You know, we absolutely need to communicate more with them. And so now let's talk about expectations. Expectations. This is so important. Now, many times people join organizations and people are afraid to ask them to do anything, right? I actually think that is where a lot of mistakes happen. You know, you join an organization, no one tells you, here's the correct way to behave, this is what's expected of you, and this is what we don't want. And so if you can do the first thing when somebody joins an organization is you talk about expectations. I did this in my meetings when I hired a new employee or anything like that. The first thing you do, expectations. So what is the expectation? All right, this is your job, this is your role, this is how many hours it takes in order for you to be successful in this role. Let me ask you, e-board member, do you accept and commit to those expectations? And you have to hear it, that they say, yes, I commit to those expectations, or you actually do it in writing. Now, I think that's something, I don't know if any of you, let me know if in the chat, if any of you had to actually sign a document as part of your organization that had an expectation and commitment. It's something that we did in my various organizations. Why? It's because it helps with management and managing expectations. If you actually say in writing, I commit to do X, Y, and Z, or commit to doing these meetings or showing up to these many meetings, when you don't do what you say you're going to do, then you could say, you can't use the excuse, well, I didn't know. I didn't know that was the expectation. It's like, dude, we had a conversation about it. You actually signed a 1-page document saying you commit to follow through the expectations of this role. What's going on? So that once you talk about that, once you have those expectations, they are more likely to do it. And what ends up happening with a lot of different organizations is a lot of source of the problems are misaligned expectations. So people in their head, whether it's a president of an organization, a manager, expect somebody to do something and then they don't do it, they get very disappointed. Or what ends up happening is you're so afraid and timid to really demand anything from them. Like you're like, they're busy students, I can't ask them to do all of this. It's like, no, maybe they like a challenge. Maybe you can give them an opportunity to add to their resume. So the higher you hold them to your expectations, listen, they may not meet them all the way here, but at least they're going to get higher up because you've moved the bar higher. So it's just finding that right Goldilocks expectations that's just enough so that it's a challenge, but it's not overwhelming or overbearing. All right. So let's keep going. All right. Next, let's apply this to a job. So this whole topic is about engagement, right? How to connect with your team, whether your organization. Well, some people could view serving on it as an executive member of a board or whatever it is, a form of a job, right? It's a volunteer job, but it's still a job. Why do people quit jobs? Why do they leave the organizations? I'd love to hear on some of you what you think, and then I'll share with you what the results of the studies are. So who would like to share with me what is the biggest reason or reasons why people quit their job? Feel free to raise your digital hand, or I can call on some of you. How about, oh, Roseanne, did I say your name correctly? I always forget.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Roseanne. All right, awesome. Cool.
I would say maybe like when you don't feel like you're advancing anymore, you're not learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're doing the job and it's so boring, like I could do this with my eyes closed. It's like, why even do this job? Why even show up, right? Totally boring, totally not, I get that 100%. Anybody else who here has other reasons on why people quit their jobs? All right.
Can I go? It's Shania.
Go ahead, Shania.
For me, I would say people quit their jobs, just to add on, when you don't feel appreciated, I think. And also to like recognition, like you mentioned before, like having a sense of belonging. And it's like, if I'm gonna keep working hard at somewhere and it's like, I don't feel like it's getting recognized, or it's like people not coming up to me like, hey, like good job, I'm gonna want to quit, because it's like, not that I need approval, but it feels good because it makes you want to continue working, because you see other people appreciate your work. They're not taking advantage of it, and it's like they recognize it. And I think a lot of people quit because they don't get that recognition. Also, too, some managers, they don't know how to treat their coworkers, their workers at all. Like, no. I'm currently like at my job right now. Mm-hmm. I kind of don't really like my manager because I feel like she doesn't care about our health, in terms of like, if we call out, she'll be like for example, I'll tell her, I'm calling out because I don't feel good. I'm not coming if I don't feel good, because then the customer's gonna be like, oh, I don't want you serving my food. If you got like a pink eye, you coughing, they're not gonna want to do that. So I took it upon myself. I'm not gonna come up to do that, to have a bad rep on me or the business. So I decided to call out. And she doesn't even like tell me like, oh, I hope you feel better, I hope you like okay or anything. Like, she doesn't like get, I don't get that. And it's like, it makes me feel away, because it's like, yeah, I understand the business aspect of work, but it's like, in order for y'all to make money, you need to make sure your coworkers are good. Because if you don't have healthy coworkers, or they're good mentally, they're not going to want to work for you. They're not going to want to get, like, you're not going to make money. So it's like, it really bothers me that a lot of like people really don't like stay at their jobs, because like they don't get treated, with respect, or like their well-being isn't being taken care of with their managers. So
100%.
You hit it real deep. You hit it real deep just now.
No, Shania, but thanks so much for sharing. And that's what, this Alexis, I'm so glad that everybody's sharing more about themselves, because this is how we all connect with as members. I'm curious where your job is, but you don't have to share it.
No, I work at a bakery. So it's called All Washing's Bakery. Yeah, we work at a bakery.
All right. Well, oh man, I love me some great croissants and some fresh bread, but you got me distracted. So, no, but you're 100% right. And guess what? Even if she, in her mind, oh, I hope she's okay, like whatever it is, chances are it maybe not, but somebody never actually taught her, hey, you got to care about your employees, because guess what happens? If she said, Shania, I'm so sorry to hear about you're sick. Are you okay, girl? Like, well, tell me what's going on. You know what? I appreciate it, whatever it is. Because if she does that and she cares about you, then you care about her and you care about the organization. And there'll be some times where you're like, I don't feel so good. You're like, hey, Shania, I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling sick, and I totally understand it, but I'm desperate. We need help. Can you just wear like a face mask and stuff like that and come in and struggle through, even just for a little bit? I'd really appreciate it. Chances are, I know you, Shania, you do it probably, right? Because that's what good team managers do. You respect people, respect your employees, and they respect you. But yes, nobody's being taught that. But that's why I'm actually teaching all of you. Some of you already know this, but other people kind of have maybe an instant or think about it a little bit. But now you're starting to recognize, oh, if I want my members to be active and engaged, I got to care about them. I got to make them feel that I care about them. Now there's some people who just pretend to care, and I'm sorry, it's phony. I had one manager that was dominant, if you remember from the high performance communication training that we did, and she knows that I'm an outgoing, high I personality. Hi, team, but I'm like, oh, this is so fake, don't even try it. Just put a smile. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. All right. Can I ask you that I need help? Sure. Don't try to fake it. Authenticity is what it's all about. Yeah. And I'm just seeing some of the other comments. Yep. Unhealthy environment. Absolutely. So manager not caring about the people. What else did we hear? From some of the other comments, you're not learning and growing. All of you are on the right track. So I'm going to share with you what the results are of the studies. Okay. These are it. And you know what shocked me? Number one, I actually thought it was about money. No, people will work for a company and get paid less money if you fulfill their needs. So number one, they're going to leave if they're not growing. They don't feel a sense of significance or purpose. The job isn't meaningful. They need to grow. Number two, they dislike their peers. They don't like their peers. The peers don't like them. So guess what? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they don't feel a sense of community, don't feel a sense of belonging. All that stuff is missing. And then they don't like their manager. Guess what? They don't receive appreciation. They don't trust their manager. The manager doesn't trust them. It's just not a healthy environment. Now, I have worked in different places. I've talked with people. I've seen the studies. Sometimes people can put up with one of these things. You know what? I love my peers. I love my manager. This job is boring as SHIT. Okay, excuse my language, but you do it because it's paying the bills. You're doing it and you love your friends and you love your people, right? But if you start to have one or more of these things, then it's too much. I'm not growing and the people don't like me. I'm not growing and I can't stand my manager. I'm out of here, right? The other things that I didn't put on here that are still other important to know, yes, money does matter. Something that also is very important is is distance from your job. So if you have to do a long commute, that could be another reason why people leave. And an interesting tidbit, do you want to know oftentimes when people start looking for new jobs, it's their birthdays and the new year. Why? Because once they're getting older, they start saying to themselves, you know what? I just turned this age. I should be higher up in my career. How come I'm not growing? Maybe I should be doing something else. They start to having that analyzing moment and saying, hey, do I really want this? Or number two, it's the new year. I'm ready for something new. I need to set out new goals. And if I'm not happy in my new job, you know what? It's time for me to start looking. So just some of those things to remember. So if you know that these are the reasons why people leave their jobs, then why do people stay? They're growing, they like their peers, and they like their managers. So this is what you can do. So now let's move on to another topic, which is meetings. So here are just some simple tips on how to have people show up to your meetings, because I know that that is something that people are worried about. Why do people not come to my meetings and things like that? So here are some tips. Some people, I put a big question mark because they're like, oh, is that meeting today? I had no idea. Like, how did you not know? Well, it's upon us as leaders of organizations to make sure that they know. So the first thing is calendar. Everyone puts meetings on the calendar. So I think right now, every Sunday or every Saturday, what do? I send a calendar invite. Hey, everybody, Thursday's Electus training. Here it is on your calendar, so you know that it's there. Some people have classes and stuff and can't make it. I understand that. I get a couple of declines. It's okay. You can watch the recording, no judgment. But at least you know every Thursday from 5 to 7:30 for the next several weeks are our trainings. No surprises, no tricks. The next thing, if you are having an organization, you can make meetings mandatory. And I would say that in terms of meetings, I think having at least allowing some people maybe 1 or 2 absences because life happens is acceptable. But I would just kind of keep it vague and just say, yes, all meetings are mandatory. And if you have an emergency and that you have, for some reason, you can't come to the meeting, please speak with the president or the vice president. Now, that might seem like, Tim, are you ruling with an iron fist? Isn't that a little hardcore? Well, remember what I talked about expectations? If I want my organization to succeed, I can't just have, people not, doing whatever they want. I want to hold this high standard, and the high standard is everybody comes to the meetings. And so the reason why I say if you have an emergency that shows compassion, but then I say speak with the president or the vice president, is because they're going to have to talk to us. Hey, what's going on? Why can't you make the meeting? Because guess what? Oh, they have some kind of event. Well, is it possible that you can move it? And maybe you could have some negotiation, like, maybe you can find someone to substitute. Oh, you don't have a babysitter? Well, have you tried? Can I find you one? Like, let's help this out. Let's work it out. And you'd be surprised that they never thought of that, or whatever it might be. Now, if you're giving all these reasonable ideas and they're like, no, I can't do it. Maybe they're lying to you. Maybe they have some other reason that they can't make it. But again, having those conversations important. Consistency, having it the same time, the same room, the same length. I cannot stand how many organizations screw up and fail because every time they have a meeting, they don't have a next scheduled meeting. They don't know when it is, where it is, and you get polls. Okay, let's find a new meeting, everybody. Let's send out a poll. When can we meet up? Do you know how many organizations in the history of colleges have wasted so much time trying to figure out when they need to meet up? Whenever you have an organization, you have your meeting times, the dates and the times. I could have said, I just basically chose a day, Thursday at this time. And this was with my student government as well. I said, these are the meetings and this is when it's happening. And if you can't attend that meeting, guess what? You can't be part of the organization. Now you might say, Tim, that's so harsh. I'm like, no, they can join the organization next year. All right. Or maybe they can become a member and not an executive board member, because we can actually send out recordings, of the events and stuff like that. But you have to have a high standard if you want your membership of your organization to succeed, straight up, and I'm just speaking from personal experience. And then the last couple of things are reminders. You need to remind people, because guess what? They forget. People are busy. Listen, I sent all of you a reminder. Hey, today, right now, 5:30. If I didn't send that out, how many of people would have shown up to this meeting? I don't know. Chances are it might have been less, because people really benefit from having those reminders, because we get lost in our thoughts, and that's what ends up happening. Okay. So the next thing is keep them quick and make them fun. Okay. People hate boring meetings. I hate boring meetings. Do you know something? If your meeting is taking so long and I'm bored out of my mind, guess what you're doing? I find it as an insult. You're disrespecting me and you don't even know it. My time is precious. These people are precious. If you show up there, I'm like, hold on, let me figure out what my agenda is here. I was like, what? You're not prepared for this meeting? What are we doing? I've sat in meetings where silence for 1 minute while the person's like, hold on, let me get my notes. And like, I'm hearing silence. And I'm like, I'm ripping my hair out, man. I'm doing all this stuff. Does anybody have any experiences like this where they've gone to either terrible meetings where they're either boring, not doing any of these tips and having these kind of experiences? Because I love to hear from all of you whether this stuff is resonating or your organizations are doing this and are very successful. Who would like to share? I'd love to hear it. I might call in some people. Elizabeth, are you available? While we're waiting for Elizabeth, how about Dominique? Dominique, are you there?
I'm there, but what, can you say that again?
Sure.
What is it?
My question is about tips for meetings. Do you see these problems happening in your clubs or organizations where people are either spending so much time trying to get the meetings together, there's no consistency, or, I just want to see if these tips are very helpful for you.
Yes, especially calendar.
Yes, absolutely. It would be, how different would it be if how many times people say, okay, everybody, Thursday, this time, here's our meeting date, and people write it down, but they didn't transfer it to their calendar or even their planner. Guess what? They're going to forget it. So I like to take control. And that's why in this Electa Society, I didn't ask you guys to put it in your calendar. I'm just going to send you a calendar invite. Save you time. It's there, whether you show up or not. That's what it's about. Thanks, Dominique. I appreciate it. Let's talk about events. Now, let's say that you're running events on your campus. How do you get members? How do you get attendees? Well, I'm going to tell you. Here are the tips and tricks. Phone and text messages. Okay. Now, people, I would say I'm a couple generations older than you. I was born in the 80s. So I don't mind picking up the phone and calling people. And I'll tell you, but I know that this generation, it's a little bit different, right? Everybody texts, but listen, texting are okay, reminding people to go, but guess what? People still don't even answer their text messages. Okay. So having a phone call is something that's essential, especially if you have a whole database of members and you want people to show up. You actually call them. You want to send email reminders 1 week ahead of time, 48 hours and 24 hours. And so when it comes time to doing outreach and calling people, here's my grassroots organization method. What you can do is you can call about 20 people in 1 hour, right? So set out 1 hour time and you can call 20 people. Now, what's going to happen is 17 of those people at least are going to have you hit their voicemails. That's fine, because at least they get to hear your voice. You need to talk to them. Hey, Susan, I'm calling because I want you, we're having an event on this time. These are going to be the benefits. This is what you're going to learn. Can you please call me back, send me a text message, or can you be there, right? And you just leave that message. They're going to listen to it, right? And what separates you from other people is because maybe other people are not going to take the time and effort to do all those phone calls. So that's what makes you stand out. So, and so these are just very, very, very easy techniques to do. Remember, you always have to give them reasons why they should be there. I think I may have talked about this before. What WIIFM stands for WIFM. It's like, what's in it for me? Out of all the different things that I'm going to be doing with my time, why should I spend time doing with what you're asking me to do? So give them the reason. And then the last tip is, I see so many people make this mistake, is they say, hey, I just want to remind you, meeting today, event today at this time, and then they just disappear. And guess what? It does not work. What we have found is that when you actually ask people the question, will you actually attend this meeting? People will either say yes, maybe, or no. Now, I have done it. I have the experience. If you just send a reminder, hey, I just reminder, events happening this time. Do you know what that says to me? That says, you know what? I'll go, maybe or maybe or not, until something else that's more important that's distracted me, that I'm going to do that. But if I text you and you say, and I ask you, will you attend? And you say yes, guess what? You've made a commitment. Chances are you are more likely to attend than if you didn't. Now, I have to tell you, I do this with each and every one of you. Whoever gets a text message from me, notice how I started, hey, will you be attending today's session? Now, some of you don't respond to me. Okay, I won't brush it off my shoulder. I won't take offense. But let me ask you, we have maybe 8 people or something like that, 4 or 6 people on this training right now, but a lot of people are going to watch this on the recording. If I didn't ask that question, and I didn't even send that invite, how many people would have shown up? Chances are 1 or 2. And again, my experience, these are not scientific numbers, but I'll just share with you what's been my experience when it comes to getting people to attend just for events themselves. If I'm sending out reminders and stuff like that, and I have like 100 people, maybe, 2 people will show up right out of that 100. But if I call a bunch of people and 10 people say yes, that they're going to come to the event, does that mean 10 people are going to show up? No, it actually doesn't. But what it does mean is that maybe 60% or half of them or 70%, somewhere between 50 to 70% of the people who committed will actually show up. And of course, there's always going to be that certain 30% of them that said yes, but guess what? An emergency happened. Oh, my mom's car broke down. I said I was going to come to that event, but something happened. Life happens to us, but you are more likely to do it if you actually ask them, will you attend? So, so when it comes to your meetings, your organizations or groups, get that confirmation and don't make this mistake. I see so many people to say, hey, reminder to do this event. You ask them, will you attend this event? Will you attend this meeting? Whatever it is. 30% will respond and say yes, no, whatever it may be. But that other 70%, guess what? You follow up, you call them because you say, hey, I didn't get a response from you. Are you attending or not? That doing those little things is what's going to increase the likelihood of them attending that event or attending that meeting. It's just about diligent follow through and follow up. Now, some of you may say, man, Tim, that seems like a lot of work. Like, what do I have to babysit people all the time? Well, yes and no. Yes, because you do need to follow up with people. That's part of being the leader, the managing and following up. But if you've done your good job, like I've trained you in this training, you've held them to high expectations. And when they don't meet those expectations, you follow up with them. Hey, Joanna, what happened? You didn't. I didn't see you at the meeting today. I didn't see you. The event was the meeting was mandatory. What happened? Oh, I'm so sorry, Tim. All right, okay. I'm very empathetic. I'm very understanding. But just a reminder, it's mandatory the meetings. Will you make sure that moving forward you will be there at those meetings? Yes, Tim, I will be there. Okay, thanks. I really appreciate it. Guess what? Having that conversation was holding them accountable to the expectation that they've already said. So that's what means they're going to likely shape up and be there at those meetings. Okay. So these are some other tips that can actually help with engagement. What is the most beautiful sound in the English language? People's names. It makes a difference. So remember calling people out, recognizing people, I think is very important. Getting feedback. Engagement is about getting feedback, asking questions versus boring lecture, right? This training that I'm all giving you is valuable, but it wouldn't be the same if you all didn't actually participate. So I'm still laughing about, Shania's, experience at her work, with the food service, when we share and I ask for people, it changes the whole nature of this training. It means people are participating. I'm learning from you. You're learning from me. When Ryan says, about laughing at yourself, it makes me think of, oh my goodness, that reminds me of this other story. So when it comes to engagement, you have to engage your members. So many times when I do some trainings with, especially with student government, or any other organization, I will create a survey of different things that they should work on, like a vision for the year, and they give all this feedback. and then I help the student president do a whole presentation, but the president doesn't just do a presentation. The president does a presentation showing all the feedback that everybody shared, because guess what? If you submitted feedback and you gave ideas, when you have that president sharing those feedback and ideas, what are you looking for? Are you really looking for everyone else's ideas? No, you're looking for your ideas. I want to see, did Tim put my idea up there? So that's something that's part of the engagement. And then once you actually share all those ideas, you say, okay, here's what everybody said. This was a very similar. What do you all think about this? Yeah, Tim, this is a very important issue, and I think we should work on this. Okay, great job, Joanna. I love that feedback. What do you think? What do you think? All right, everybody, anybody has any more feedback? Nope. All right, this is going to be our issue that we're going to focus on. So now I've collected feedback. I've engaged them. I've asked them for additional feedback. And now they feel more committed, as if this is something alive. So this is something that managers really do very well in order to get people behind a cause or to do something. And like I said, respect people's time. If you want to make meetings fun, you can, but I rather make a meeting, haha, some kind of jokes here and there, but get it done and get it quick, and then actually have a hangout afterwards. All right, now we're going to have some socialization, some drinks and some light snacks. Now it's going to be more fun. So start on time. Don't do all these things of starting very, very late, because then guess what? That teaches people that, all right, you know what? Those student government meetings, those club organization meetings, they never start on the time. I can be 5 minutes late. I can be 10. It just starts to erode. No, we start on time. We get the meeting done, then we can hang out, then we can have fun. Okay. Oh, this is my favorite. So when we talk about persuasion and influence, that's what Electus Society is about. So I want to share with you what I have learned about persuasion and influence. And one of the best individuals that I've learned from about persuasion and influence is this dude. Okay, the author of Influencer. It's actually Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. It's Robert Cialdini. And he is a psychologist from Arizona, and he's like a doctor and a doctorate in this field. And he wrote the book Influence, and what he really did, it was about how to prevent yourself from getting into what were those secrets, not secret societies, cults. Yeah, so he started to, like, how do people really persuade and influence other people? And he wrote about all these different principles to kind of protect people from being influenced or manipulated. But guess what? Business people read this book and they're like, oh my goodness, I could use these principles in this book to really do and sell and succeed in my business. And so he started gravitating, becoming a business advisor. And so then what he started to do is like, listen, we can influence people now knowing these characteristics, but we must do it in an ethical way. And so, he really believes in that. And I've seen that. Now he came out with I read the first book. It's kind of boring. I have to admit, it's important to read, but it's boring. My favorite book is this one. This is the second book he did, or another one. It's called, yes, 50 Scientific Proven Ways to Be More Persuasive. So in it is a bunch of different test cases, studies that he's done on how to be more influential. And this is my favorite one, which is called the copy machine story. And so what he would do is they did a test, and they had a copy machine and a bunch of students or people trying to make a copy. And so the point of the test is, can I influence individuals to let me cut in front of them and make a copy in front of them and cut and cheat, right? What could you say to actually get them to let you do that? Now, what they did is, if you asked, hey, may I please cut in front of you and make a copy? There was a 60% chance that people would let you do. Let's just say this was a very friendly collegiate environment. And they're like, man, if he must be asking, maybe he really has to. And maybe 40% of the times, like, no, there's on a line, get back there. But what ended up happening is, if that person went to that person at the front of the line and says, hey, may I please make a copy use the copy machine because, and fill in the blank of whatever reason why they need to make a copy. They went from, there was a 60% chance I'll get a cut to a 94% chance that they would make that cut. And then they said, well, you know what, maybe the reasons could make a big difference on why they let me cut. So why don't we try to dumb down like the dumbest reason that we could give for people? So they said, what if we use the reason of, hey, can I make a copy because I need to make a copy? That was literally the question, because I really need to make a copy. And guess what? It was a 93% success rate. Why am I mentioning all this to you? Because this has to deal with when you are persuading and influencing your team members, your audience, your employees, whatever it may be. You have to give them a reason why you need something from them. Hey, Johnny, can you please get me that paper that I asked you to do? The reason why it's so important, because I really need it so I can help these other coworkers, right? Inserting a reason, even in an email, in our conversations, everything, it actually increases your persuasion. So that is why I would like you all to use this when it comes to your organizations and give people reasons why. Why should they come to your event? Why I need you to come to this meeting, why it's so important, why I need you to do this task. It's because that's what I want you to remember. You're going to already increase your persuasion influence. Now, the next topic that I want to cover is delegation. Okay. Now, this is what happens when you don't delegate. This is what you're going to look like. You're going to be overstressed, overworked. You're going to burn the candlestick at both ends. And as adorable as this cat looks from being stressed out, you're only one person and you can't do everything. So you're going to need to delegate. You're going to need to delegate stuff to your team members and things like that. And you say, Tim, I know I need to delegate, but I hate doing it. Why? Because people suck. People don't do it the way I want them to do it. People, take too long. I can make sure that it's done the right way. Insert your reason. All of those things could be valid. But the reality is that you can do so much more, if you can actually delegate. And so I want to teach you all how to delegate effectively. So the delegation method I'm going to teach you is called stewardship delegation. I even talked about this in my other training called Professional Success 101, how to get a raise or get promoted. If you all remember, it was emailed to you as part of the acceptance email as a bonus training for Electus Society. So here's what it is. It's delegation, right? The first step is, before you delegate, you have to ask somebody. You can't just tell people, hey, do this. This is a volunteer organization, etc. So you first ask, hey, we really need to reserve a room for the award ceremony. Can anybody help us with that? Well, guess what happens? Sometimes you're in a meeting or whatever, crickets, silence. No one is doing that at all. So what do? You ask somebody, Johnny, Christina, Mohammed, can you please reserve the room or awards ceremony? And the reason why I'm asking you to do it is because you have actually reserved the room before. Chances are they're going to say, sure, yes. And that's where most people end. Okay, reserve the room. You already know how to do it. No. Every time you delegate, you have to follow the 5 steps of stewardship delegation. So you want to make sure that it gets done. And so these are the tips to do. It is 5 steps: results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences. And the mnemonic device that I use is rappers give rhymes, attitude, and color, right? So even if you can't remember, oh, Tim said that there's 5 steps to delegation. What are they? Results, and I don't remember out. Write down rappers give rhymes, attitude, and color, and then just take that mnemonic device. Okay, R, results. G, give. Guidelines, excuse me. R, another one, resources. A, accountability. color C, consequences. It's just a way to kind of help you remember it. So what are the results? You give them a clear understanding of what needs to be done. I need you to reserve this room and have it confirmed by next Friday. That's it. Okay. Then it comes guidelines. What are the restrictions that that person needs to know in order so that it's done? Now, if you're giving them so much guidelines, you're micromanaging them. So you just have to give them just enough to make sure that it's successful. All right, we need to reserve the room for Saturday evening from X time to X time. We need it needs to have 100 people, and we need a laptop, LCD, projector, and screen. Right? That's it. That's what we need. Those are the guidelines. Then comes the resources. Well, okay, it could be human resources, financial, technical. All right, what do all they need in order to get this job done? All right, do they have the contact information of the reservations person, or do they know to the website to reserve it? You know, do they know where to go with IT? Do they need money? Do they need a bank account? Whatever it might be in order to make that happen. And then accountability is you make sure that if you need it done by Friday, you don't wait till Friday to check in with them. You say, okay, can you complete it by, you know, by next Tuesday or by next Wednesday? And let's have a check-in to see on your progress. Well, guess what? You're doing that accountability to ensure that they do it, because guess what happens? Emergencies happen. They may not be able to do it. So if you check in with them Wednesday, hey, did you complete that, you know, room reservation? Oh, I'm so sorry. I had a test. I had totally forgot it. And like, okay, can you take care of it today? Yes, I'll take it. Okay, can you text me when it's done, so that I you know, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or if something happens to them, then you can jump in and take care of it. But these are the type of techniques and management techniques of delegation that you all need to learn. And then the last one is consequences. Now, consequences is always thought of something negative, right? Consequences. No, but it could be something good as well. Hey, if we are reserving this room and you do a good job reserving the room by this Friday, well, we can make sure that we can get the best room before other clubs do. That's why it's so important that I need you. What are you doing? You're giving the because, you're giving them the why it's so important, the consequences, good or bad, if we get this room or if we lose out on a room. Hey, if we don't have this room, we're not going to have anybody to have this award ceremony, and it will be very embarrassing. We're going to have to find a new date and time, and that's going to be a pain in the butt. So these are all the steps when it comes to delegation. So now, final kind of topics here. Let's talk about firing people, transitioning, right? Mentoring people. So let's talk about whenever you train somebody to take over for you, you really want to give them at least a month to train them. And the best form of training is the Jedi method of training, where somebody shadows you, you show them the ropes, you go to the meetings, they do what they need to do, right? So that they follow through and do your job and do it very well. But sometimes you have employees, people that you're training, whatever it may be, and they don't turn out the way you want them to. So these are some images from Star Wars. If you've ever seen the original films, 1, 2, and 3, and you know, Anakin Skywalker ends up turning into a bad guy. So what you need to do when you have employees, members, anybody like that, you need to dismiss them or replace them. And somebody always asks, how long should I take to dismiss somebody, you know, or fire somebody? And the answer is 1 month. I've managed, like I shared before, over 600 interns. I've managed over, 40 different employees. If people are not shaping up by 1 month, they're out of there. Now, I say that with very certainty. Could it be 6 weeks, 5 weeks? Yes, maybe. But here's the thing. I say that because there's a specific way that I do it to help hold people accountable and manage people. So I want to teach you what those ways are. Okay, here they are. So it's these 7 steps. All right, number one, you get clear expectations. So no one should be misunderstanding why they didn't have that expectation. The next thing that they need to do is they need to be explain why. If they mess up, you have to have a conversation with them. You don't come out with them out the gate saying when people screw up, you're like, you screwed up, don't you ever do it again? No, people mess up. It's okay. Your step two is you didn't meet my expectation. I have to have compassion. Let me be humble and understand, why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? This could be a member, this could be an employee. Then you say, hey, let's figure out a solution. How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? All right, maybe you need to put this in your calendar. Maybe you need to, take some things off your plate, but it's a conversation. It's not me telling them. I'm having them discover why they didn't do what they do. And once they figure it out, it's like, okay, so you didn't put it in your calendar. All right. You got very busy. All right. So what are you going to do to help that this doesn't happen again? Okay. I'm going to put it in my calendar. And then I'm going to, be part of my to-do list. Okay, great. Is that a commitment? Can you make sure that you do that moving forward? Yes, Tim, I will do that. Great, great. Then what happens? They mess up again. Oh man, they didn't do it. They didn't follow through. So now we have another conversation. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit tougher. I said, listen, we've had this conversation. I've already given you a warning, that we needed to do this. You made a commitment. You didn't do it the first time, and now you did it the second time. So here's my warning. Okay, this can't be. We can't keep doing this like this. All right. If you continue to not do what you're supposed to do, then there has to be some consequences. Either that you may need to be dismissed of this role, or you may need to step down if you can't follow through with what we need to talk about. Does that work? Do you agree? It's a conversation, right? Like you have to be a little bit more tough for those people who are not assertive, that you have to do that. Then what you do is you inform the advisor. Okay. Hey, you know what? I'm going to let the advisor know. Please make sure that you do what you need to do. Got it. Then what happens? Oh man, they mess up again. So now it's written warning time. I've given you a verbal warning. You screwed up. You didn't do what you needed to do. I already told you that there's going to be threatened consequences, right? So now I'm going to tell it to you again, and I'm going to CC the advisor because now it's official. All right. Because you didn't do what you needed to do. And if that point that they didn't do what they needed to do, then we're like, you know what? Listen, we gave you a verbal warning. We had a conversation. Then we gave you a verbal warning. Then we gave you a written warning. Now we're going to have to dismiss you. Right. And sometimes people will end up doing this thing. If you follow these exact sequences, chances are maybe 80 or 90% of the time, they'll shape up. They will improve. They will do better because guess what? You're compassionate. You're giving them opportunities. You're holding them accountable. They will step up, right? If they really care about what they're trying to do. The other 10% don't care. Okay. I don't know what it is, but some people will step down because they want to save face. They don't want to they know that they're going to be fired. So they don't want to be fired. So they're like, you know what? I can't do this role anymore. I'm so sorry. I'm too busy. Right. And that's fine. But I would just ask them to help find a replacement if this is a membership of an organization versus an employee. Right. But that other 10%, you're going to have to fire them. You're going to have to dismiss them because they just don't want to make the decision, whatever it is. They don't want to look bad. Maybe they're trying to keep it on their resume, whatever it may be. And you inform them, and then you CC the advisor and say, hey, you know what? You're no longer in the role. Now, some people may ask me, well, Tim, how can you do that? What if there's bylaws? There's a way that you need to impeach somebody or dismiss them. And I'm like, I ain't dealing with all that bureaucratic nonsense. Okay. They should have done what they needed to do because they had the expectations, and I gave them so much opportunity that they shouldn't even be upset that they've left. They've just accepted it because they just continued to have so many opportunities that they botched all of them that they can't be mad at you. Nobody should ever be surprised if they're fired, right? It should never be surprised. If they're surprised or shocked, guess what? You didn't do these steps. Now, some people will say, well, Tim, I did that. I did some of these steps and I still got feedback. Well, did you do all the steps? Did you do it exactly this way? And then the other thing that I don't have time to really go over is, there's also a way to actually communicate. There's a way to talk to people when they screw up. And so that takes a lot more practice and nuance. And I would, if you were my team members, or if I was the director and you were my managers and you had employees, I would train you and do mock conversations so that you would learn how to speak to people in such a way that shows them respect, holds them accountable, gets them commitment, put it in writing, et cetera, et cetera. So again, at least the general principles about firing people. Get rid of them. And you say, but Tim, then we wouldn't have a member for the executive board. I'm sorry. It's not worth your stress, time, effort, chasing down people who are not doing what they're supposed to do. You're better off doing it on your own. That's the one time I'm like, it's better off to not have an employee than to have an employee that's not doing what they're supposed to do. And if it's a real problem, fine, give them an extra month until you work to find a replacement so that you can then fire them and replace them. So this is the way the world works. Okay. So that's the end of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? And then I'm going to actually share the post assessment right now. So if you haven't done so already, if you don't have any questions, you can actually fill out this post assessment so I can get feedback. But in the meantime, I would love to have any other questions, because now is a great time for you to ask me anything that can help you with respect to getting active and engaged members, employees, et cetera, et cetera. So any questions? All right. It doesn't look like there's any questions. So I'll just get 2 comments and then we can end this thing. All right. So who'd like to share what they've learned out of this presentation? What was the most valuable part for it? What they gained from it? I'd love to hear from you. How about you? Let's hear from you, Roseanne.
I can go. The thing that I learned today is probably how to communicate with when you're for example, when you're recruiting people. You mentioned to first become friends with them, introduce yourself to them correctly, and then tell them what what's the subject of the club or what's the mission of it. So that was something that I kind of learned. I feel like I didn't do that before. So yeah,
you were just friendly, but not really spending a lot of time becoming best friends with them and really getting to know them, etc. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, they could be doing so many other things with their time. If you don't care about them, why are they going to care about you or care about the organization? I like to think about, I recently got into gardening and I think it's very valuable. I can't expect to throw seeds in the ground and water it occasionally, and let the rain just fall in the water and expect these plants to grow. No, they actually need to be attended to. They need to have nourishment. You need to give extra nutrients to the plant. You actually have to put mulch on it. If there's any weeds, you got to pull it out. So it takes time and energy to garden and things like that. And the rainwater is not enough. Just because they join the organization doesn't mean that it's enough for them to just stay active and engaged. You have to take the initiative to keep them engaged. Okay. Thanks so much, Roseanne. Asia, final comment. What did you get from the training? Asia, are you there? Maybe she stepped away. All right. Well, while we're waiting for that, how about we hear from Shah? Shah, what did you get? What's the biggest insight you got from this training? Shah, are you there? Maybe he stepped out as well. All right, Ryan, how about you? Final thought?
Yes, I'm here. Um,
Thank-
what I got out of this was how I was able to relate to a lot of the things I'm currently doing. So
Mhm.
we were talking about like writing pitches for getting people to join our cause. So that relates to what I'm doing with NIPERG at my college, since I'm in charge of the higher ed campaign this semester. And I did the same thing back in February. And yes, you can't get people to join by being desperate, even though it's so tempting since the higher ed campaign, it's hard to get people after higher ed week.
Yeah.
So it's tempting to want to just say, please join, but or please, I need interviews, so please be open to being interviewed by. So you have to just roll with the punches and not resort to desperation, since that will only lead to less support than already low amounts of support to begin with.
Absolutely. And now that you know that, because people don't want to become a member or part of something if you come across desperate, but now you could actually use some of those persuasion techniques that we talked about, right? Where you can give a because. Hey, can you please do XYZ for the higher education coalition or whatever it is that you're working on? The reason why, because it's so important that you should be involved, is because X, Y, and Z. This is going to help students not pay so much for their higher education, for people who really need it, who want to rise out of poverty, and give them all the reason. It's an opportunity for you to really give back for all the people who've, X, Y, Z, give whatever reason. Hey, can I count on your support? Can I get your commitment? Can you please sign here? Being direct. Asking the questions directly, especially developing a relationship with them. Hey, talk to me. How important is higher education to you? Do you have some stories? Maybe it's getting them to join as a member of the organization, but developing those friendships. How does that sound, Ryan?
Right. Yeah, and that sounds perfect. And that's really a lot of what I took from this session today.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate all of your comments and your feedbacks and the people who actually shared in the chat. I understand that some of you might be either driving or doing something that you couldn't actually, change over or unmute the phone or stepped away. But I am going to send out this recording for those of people who weren't able to be here live. So I appreciate all of you very much. I will send the recording tonight once it becomes available, and then I will see you all hopefully next Thursday. And for our next, I think it's going to be a Tea with Tim. I'll have to look at the schedule, but Thursday from 5:30 to 7, we'll have some new insights, new topics, new trainings to discuss. And I see, Asia, you had to go to the bathroom. It's okay, no problem. I still appreciate you being here. And yes, please fill out the Google Forms, right? That I submitted, because I need your feedback as well as in order to receive credit for this training. So everybody have a great night. It's great talking with y'all. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.